I love swimming. I swam for the Los Angeles Swim Stadium, which is where the 1984 Olympics were. So I can say I swam in the Olympics pool and I got it ready for all the Olympians. But I would come in last every single time. When you come in last, people treat you like you didn't try and give your all. There is no good job. There's good job for second, there's good job for third, there's good job for fourth. There is nothing for last but an honorable mention. I would come in last giving 150% of what I had. That was everything I had. And I was tired of coming in last. Decided I'm gonna go to the safest place on the planet, which is my grandma's house. And I'm gonna lay it out to my grandma, I'm quitting. Because then my grandmother can be on my side. When my parents are fussing at me, for quitting, my grandmother can go, leave that baby alone. When I went to my grandma and I said, I'm tired, and I give this long speech because I think I've always been a speaker. I'm ready to quit because no one says good job. No one says thank you for being on the team. Thank you for showing up. No one treats me like I trained every day like the other athletes. I'm just tired. I'm done. And so I got surprised because my grandmother said, sweetheart, sit down. And I was like, well, I got to sit down to quit. She said, you're young and you might not know this. She said, but you come from a long, long line of winners. And quitters never win. And winners never quit. And she commences to tell me how my ancestors were brought over from Africa. And many people died on the slave ship. But my ancestors didn't. And they didn't because quitters never win. And winners never quit. And then she said, and your ancestors also picked cotton for 10, 12, 14 hours a day. And many people died of a sunstroke, but yours didn't, because quitters never win and winners never quit. She said, and your grandparents, we made do without cars and without amenities and without television and without stoves. We cooked our dinners in the fireplace. And she pointed to her fireplace and I'm like, what? She goes, we did that. And we didn't stop because quitters never win and winners never quit. She said, so sweetheart, I know you might have thought that you had the option of quitting. Like, what? She said, but that's not in your blood, Lisa. I am the designer of my own destiny. I am bold. I am courageous. I'm perfect in my imperfection. I just stopped by to ask you, are you willing to be radical for the thing you stand for? Are you willing to dance long enough for someone to catch a glimpse at your groove? Are you willing to let your light shine so brightly that it might disrupt your neighbor? You are the author of your autobiography. You write the story of your life. I say write a story that's gonna be damn good to read.
Everyone, please help me welcome Lisa Nichols to the show. There we go. Thank you. So Lisa, the world knows you from many things, The Secret, 7 New York Times bestsellers, all that stuff. Tell us where you got started.
I didn't start out thinking that I would be in The Secret or 7 New York Times. I started in South Central Los Angeles. Many would say an overzealous child, a big dreamer. Always wanted to find the edge of the box, only to find out that there was no box. And I wanted to play in the universe as a child. My family dynamic was really amazing. Great mom, great dad, felt very safe in their home. It was just I had to go outside to get things done. I was raised between the Harlem Crip 30s and the Rolling 60s. I had 3 fights a week to get home from school. And I just wanted to know I was going to be okay. But outwardly, everything was always amazing. I always had a great big smile. And I found myself seeking to own the smile. As a little girl, I struggled academically. I was always a creative. Putting things in order, I was challenged with. And only to find out in my mid-20s that I'm functionally dyslexic. I struggled for 12 years all through school. My highest grade was a C+. When I would get a C, I'd come home and do the happy dance. Go, Lisa, it's your birthday. Because I worked hard for that C. I didn't learn quickly. I found out later that I was wonderfully, significantly dyslexic. But while I was in school, I didn't know. I just knew everything was turned backwards. Everything just felt like I couldn't get it fast. And the school system didn't want to wait on me. They didn't have time to wait on me. So I struggled. I know I passed several classes because I was a nice kid. They were like, "You're so nice, we're just gonna pass you." I accept. I accept your kindness. And so I always had this collision of experiences, collision of emotions. And I think probably by the time I was 22, I just wanted to feel some calm inside of me. And that began my journey to self-discovery. Is I just want to find my calm.
It's amazing. As a little girl going out into those streets, sort of gang-ridden streets, I mean, tell me viscerally, what was that like? What did you see on a daily basis? What happened?
Chaos, community chaos, not chaos in my house. I'd never seen my mom and dad argue. We weren't this poor family. I had no idea that we were under the poverty line. All my needs were met. But the moment I stepped out my front door, I remember that I've never started a fight, but I would fight 3 days a week just to get home. And a fight to me became just the exercise. I had to go through this gang called the Harlem Crip 30s every day. And going to school was easy because they didn't wake up early. Coming home from school was difficult because they not only were up, but they were up and out. And if I didn't walk through the Harlem Crip 30s, I had to go the long way. And that gang was a rival gang, even though I wasn't in a gang, where I lived earmarked me to belong to a particular community. For maybe 6 years, I didn't wear open-toe shoes. I didn't wear jewelry. I would pull my hair back in a ponytail. I realized that I was living in a defensive fight or flight mindset, just naturally. And it felt like there was no escape. I would look at the Brady Bunch. And the Brady Bunch, they had a house that always ended up calm. And I didn't know as a child, I didn't know anyone that wasn't African American other than my teachers. But I wanted to be like those kids. I didn't know what stairs led to because every house in my community was a single-story home, but I wanted to have a house that had stairs. Like I literally held on to the Brady Bunch because they had a level of calm and they worked it out at the end of the day. And I would go, one day, I'm gonna have a life that's calm, that we sit around the table and eat at the same time, that I have a backyard. And I was a little dreamer and I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't know how to get there. There was no breadcrumbs to how to get there. And because I struggled in school, I knew I wasn't gonna be an advanced student. I was never anywhere near an advanced student. So I knew a scholarship wasn't my way out. And that was every inner city kid's way out, was a scholarship. And so I leaned to the other side, which was sports. And started running track. I tell people I had to run track because I had to get away from these gang members. I became a state champion. I held the record in 330 low hurdles for 18 years at my high school. And I just wanted to sport my way out of the chaos. And so much of who I am now comes from making a decision not to recreate that chaos, not to live in it, to pull my entire family out of it. and to have this life that has a sense of peace and consistency to it.
No one change, no one transformation happens all at once. So it's not a 180-degree turn. It's not like you have this amazing breakthrough, the ceiling opens up, lights come down, and you hear the angels sing, oh, you are now changed. It just ain't happening like that. It's gonna be in small needlepoint moves. And my prayer for you is that in this time that we have together, that I help to create a small needlepoint move for you. And then if we choose to play together more, learn from each other.
So that's high school, obviously a challenge, but nothing better than a C+. But you made it through. So what decisions did you have to make now that it's time that they're gonna kick you out of high school one way or the other, right?
Yeah. I remember when my graduating year, I was the head of the cheerleading squad, captain of the track team, editor of yearbook. I was high ranking in student council. I was everything sociable. And I was scared to death to leave high school. I didn't know how would someone, a unicorn like me, fit in the world. I didn't excel at anything other than connecting with people. And I didn't see it on career day, a career that just said, connect with people and you'll have this great career. Like on career day, I was so looking for the career that just said, just love deep and love hard and want the best for people and you'll be great. There was nothing. There was be a school teacher, be a nurse, be a doctor, be a lawyer, and I didn't feel like academically I even could go after those things. And so I remember my career counselor, she said, Lisa, you have so much potential. And I would always go, what does that mean? Potential feels like I'll be great in the future, but I suck right now. You know, that's what potential, I didn't know how to touch my potential. I remember my career counselor was like, we just gotta find that thing you're good at.
Then with knowledge of the many alternatives, choose the career area that suits you best and start putting together your credentials for a fulfilling future in the world of work.
I went to college. I don't talk about this often. I went to college in Oregon for a short while. I went on a track scholarship. In college, I learned that I liked learning because it has more freedom. I could creatively learn. I could go sit under a tree and study. I could meet with my professors. My father gave me a checkbook in case you get an emergency, Lisa, write checks at school. And so he called me and said, Lisa, you have like 11 checks written for $1.50. What's going on? I was like, well, every Friday I take one of my professors for a croissant and a coffee and I buy it for them. And then I review everything I learned that week to make sure I know what they taught me before the test. And I went to a small college so we could do that. And so I had this freedom. I love learning. But the other side of my college experience is I was the top athlete. My college hadn't won a track meet in 2 years. And my first year I took them undefeated. Well, that was beautiful, but it also cost me because I averaged 6 events every Saturday. And I became this horse for them. And I didn't want to be that. I began to see that I could learn. I was creative in learning and I began to go, oh, I'm not a dummy. I just learn unique. So I wanted to pursue that. I wanted to dive into that. But I was on a track scholarship and I had to run. The athletic director brought me in his office and he said, if you're not gonna run, you have to pay this. Tell me how you're gonna pay it. And I'm 18, right? At the time, though, I have 6 grandparents still alive. So I was really blessed. My mom's mom, my mom's mom's mom, my mom's dad, my mom's dad's mom. I had 6 grandparents. So I'll never forget being in his office and I'm writing down each grandparent's name and putting $50 next to them. And I put my dad down for $500. Like, I don't know anything. Like, I'm just making these numbers up and they're very big to me. And then he goes, great. He goes, so the balance is like $7,000. How will you pay that? And I said, I don't know. And he goes, I tell you what, I'll pay it for you if you run. And I said, but I don't want to run anymore. I want to be a student. I really like learning. I think I like psychology. I think I want to delve into that. I think I like, the behavior of people. I think I kind of like that. And he goes, well, you need to run. And I said, I don't want to run. And that day he said, well, you have to leave my campus and you will not amount to much because you don't respect authority. I went back to my classes, and by the time I got out of my classes, the locks on my dorm room door had been changed. And all of my belongings had been packed up and boxed and were in the administration's office. And that was like on a Tuesday. For the next 3 days to the end of the week, I snuck and stayed in rooms with my friends. And they would bring me back, nasty food from the cafeteria because I couldn't get in the cafeteria. By Thursday, my teachers wouldn't allow me in class. So by Saturday, I realized I'd been locked out of school. Cell phones didn't exist then. And my dad, I'm the baby, so my dad was on business trips because he can finally travel now because the baby's gone to college. So my dad wasn't at home for me to call and get help. And my mom couldn't help me. And so I had $152 in my bank account. My dad would keep it in the bank for any emergencies. And so I looked up a one-way ticket home from Oregon to California. And it was $150. My friends all chipped in. They gave me like another $15 to eat to get home. I called a taxi. I was 60 miles away from Portland, Oregon. None of my friends had cars. I told the taxi driver, I think I just got locked out of school. He goes, what'd you do? I was like, I didn't want to run track. I wanted to be a student. And he said, I didn't get to go to college because I couldn't afford to go. And I said, I have like $17 or $20. That's all I have. And he goes, what are you going to eat with on your way home? I was like, my friends stole popcorn and bananas, so I had a bag full of contraband, food contraband. And this taxi driver gave me a ride from McMinnville, Oregon, 64 miles to Portland, Oregon, for nothing. I got on the plane to come back from Oregon, and I didn't know how to tell. I was the first kid in my family to go to university. And now I was coming home. And I came home, and I caught a taxi from the airport. I told the taxi driver what happened, and the taxi driver gave me $5. There are good people in the world. I sat on my front porch. I lived in the back house, a back one-bedroom house with my dad. And my landlord lived in front. My dad was on a business trip. I couldn't take my keys to school with me because I kept losing them, as any 17, 18-year-old would. And so I was locked out. So I sat on the front porch of my house for 8 hours until my landlord came home. And she said, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be at school, because it was a big deal that I was at university. And I said, I think I got kicked out. I'm not sure. Like, I wasn't sure what happened. She let me in, and it took 3 days for my dad to come home because he was on a business trip. He didn't know that I was home. And when he came home, he called the school, and I'll never forget the conversation. My daughter flew home. How could this happen? No, she has a scholarship. Well, we can pay. What's the fee? Well, how much did you want her to run? It doesn't feel good to her. Is there any other way we can do this? I'll never forget hearing him. Is there anything else I could do? If she came back, and I got a second job. Would you let her in? Thank you. And I remember I ran in the bathroom because I couldn't hold back my tears. I knew I wasn't going back to school, but I didn't want my daddy to feel like he had let me down because he didn't have enough money. And I went through a depression. That was my first depression. I went to a vocational school, and I remember walking through the hallways of the vocational school, seeing the faces of all the kids at my high school that had smoked drugs and that had ditched school classes and that were disrespectful to the professors. And I saw this group of people that I didn't fit in. And it was the first time I asked myself, how did I end up here? And I went to the career counselor and she said, what do you want to take? I said, nothing. I just want to get out of here. And she said, well, accounting pays the most. So I was like, okay, I'll be an accountant. It was an 18-month course. I graduated in 9 months, and I sat in this career of accounting for 7 years, the worst fit for me. But I didn't know what to do. So for the next 7 years, I did accounts payable, accounts receivable, and collections, trying to discover Lisa.
Some of your best motivation might come wrapped in sandpaper. Some of your best inspiration comes with some pricks and some nails and some thorns around it. Some of your best inspiration came in an experience that you didn't ask for, you didn't want, and you'd never want to have again. Some of your best inspiration, some of the very thing that's fueled your soul to get you here, came in an experience that you dare not wish on your enemy. So I just stopped by to stir your soul a bit. I stopped by to disrupt any form of mediocrity in you. I stopped by to settle your doubt, because some of you have put a period where God put a comma and said, it ain't over yet, it's just beginning. Don't put a period there yet. That deserves a comma. Yes,
You spend 6-7 years in a lonely prison of accounting, and you find out you're pregnant.
I spent 6-7 years in this lonely place getting fired from 5 different jobs. I mean, anywhere from collections, which I should have got fired, by the way. Like, when people would tell me why they couldn't pay, I'd go, that's a good reason. I'm going to delete your name from the list. So I'm not saying that people fired me because they were mean to me. I am saying that I found what I sucked at before I found out what I was good at. And at 28, in that journey of discovery, I meet a man, and I met him on the job as professionals. And so I had this conversation in the back of my head that started when I was 12. And that conversation said, you can't date anybody in this neighborhood because they're going to go to jail. And you will be tied and tethered to jail. And you're seeking the Brady Bunch. And they had disruption, but they didn't have jail. And so meeting him on the job as a professional, I felt everything's good. He has a job. He's a professional. He was technical. He was fixing the computers. And the moment he walked in, I wanted to break every computer in my office so that he could stay as long as possible. And 13 months later, I found myself pregnant. I had my son, Jelani, and I'll never forget, I was sitting in my living room and the phone rang. I hadn't heard from my son's father in about 3 days, which was uncommon.
Hello? Hey, I got some news to tell you.
Lisa, I'm in LA County Jail. I dropped the phone. And I looked at my son in the bassinet. And my biggest fear since 12 years old had just come true. I went to LA County Jail, and when they patted me down, I felt humiliated. But when they asked me to remove my son Jelani's diaper, I was done. And I told him, you won't ever see me again. He called my son every week. My son would talk to him all the time, and when my son turned 8, my son looked at me and said, Mommy, I don't want to talk to Daddy on the phone anymore. I don't want to see any more pictures of Daddy. I want to touch his head. And I knew that I had to tell him where he was. We had to drive 5 hours up north. And I never forget my son and I walking through the prison. I'm just sick. I'm nauseous. I'm sick. And in my nausea and my just scattered brain, the sheriff said, go right. And in my dyslexia, probably, I went left. And I see all of these, what looks like dorms, and all of these faces come to the window, and all men, and I'm like, this doesn't feel right. It just doesn't feel right. And I look down at Jelani, and I just feel like I want to pass out. I just want to go back through the gate. I just want to pass out. But I don't want to let him down, because he just wants to see his dad. And I said, son, I don't know if I could do this. And he squeezed my hand, and he looked up, he goes, Mommy, don't worry, we get to go home. We didn't do anything wrong. I was like, okay, promise? That's when he saw his dad for the first time. My son is 25 years old, and his father is still in prison. And it's crazy that that's my story. You know, but it's also a beautiful sense of life. Like I had to find light with my biggest fear coming true. My grandmother used to say, cinnamon tastes really bad by itself, baby, and nutmeg tastes really nasty by itself, baby. But if you put cinnamon, nutmeg with some brown sugar and peaches with a little crush, you got a great peach cobbler, baby. And I learned that was my cinnamon by itself.
Many years of blending. As you drop that phone, you realize you got a little baby here to take care of. What do you do next?
So when Jelani was 3, I worked at for LA Unified School District, and I was reminded daily by the educators that I wasn't qualified to work there because I didn't have a degree, which was okay for me because my best motivation initially was I'll show you motivation. Anybody else got the I'll show you motivation, right? Yes, yes, right? And so I started reading books. I never finished them because it took too long. It took at that time, 9 months to finish one book. I'm like, oh my God, this book. I thought the books were boring, but it really was. I just kept having to reread the same line to get it. But I kept coming past the pay yourself first. So I wrote a check for $110 to myself. And in the memo line, I put funding my dream. And I took it to the bank. And I opened an account. And I asked the lady, can I mail my checks here? Because I don't want to see my balance. And so the lady said, yeah, you can mail your check in. You don't have to look at it. So I started writing myself a check every 2 weeks. And I said I was going to write it for 5% more than the previous check. And in the memo line, I put funding my dream. And I mailed it in. And then I did it again. And I realized, oh, I can still pay my bills and write this check. Then I started looking for money. I was like, oh, like if I do my own nails, I can add 40. If I do my own hair, I can add another 40. And then I sold my Nissan Altima. I went and got an old SUV. I moved in with a roommate. I wrote myself a bigger check. Funding my dream, mailed it. I never knew how much I had. I was just funding my dream, head down, working, funding my dream, LA Unified School District. And 3.5 years later, I go into the bank And my son is standing right next to me, and I said, my name is Lisa Nichols. And the woman screamed. She goes, oh my God, you're the funding my dream lady. I was like, yeah, I guess I am. And all of a sudden, all the tellers came running around. The manager came, they're like, oh my God, okay, oh my God, we have been wondering. We all got the same question. Y'all know what the question is, right? What's your dream?
What's the dream?
What's the dream? And so I didn't say anything at the time. I was just kind of like, I don't know, I'm still getting clear on the dream. I just came to check my balance. She wrote it down. Everyone's excited. She wrote it down, turned it around to me. I looked at it. I said, oh no, my name is Lisa Shantae Nichols, and my social security number, I said, that is not my money. The last 4 digits of my social security number are, I was like, you guys are gonna figure out that that's a mistake. There's no sense in me taking it. You'll want it back at some point. I think you need to check the account. The banker's eyes began to tear up. They were like, no, this is really you. Miss Nichols, you've been writing a check every 2 weeks to yourself, saying you're funding your dream. This is your balance. And she slid it back to me. And I looked down and it said $62,500. They said, Miss Nichols, whatever your dream is, I think you can fund it now. I looked at my son, Jelani, who now is 5 or 6, and I said, Jelani, our lives are gonna be a little different now, baby. And I packed up my old truck with all the things I love the most, with my little boy in the passenger seat, and I drove straight up the 405 freeway from Los Angeles to San Diego. And we came across a new apartment building, said new apartments, bad credit welcome. And I said, we respect and need both of those things. And that's where we started the company. And I made my office out of a walk-in closet. And I worked out of that walk-in closet for 4 years. And that's where Motivating the Masses was born.
As you started motivating the masses, what did you want to do for them? How did you want to motivate these masses?
Yeah. So, hey, welcome to the Lisa Nichols channel. I didn't know the name of the company that I was gonna have, right? And my girlfriend was with me and she was like, well, what do you want to do? I said, I want to motivate people. I want to motivate people. She says, okay, what kind of people? I said, everybody. She said, that's the masses. There was no branding, brilliance behind it. It was like, that's what I want to do. But here's the crazy thing. I did the DBA for Motivating the Masses. And then I said, I want to motivate teens. So I did the DBA for Motivating the Teen Spirit. So I was working in motivating the teen spirit, and that was flourishing and taking off.
We've had the pleasure of transforming the lives of over 210,000 teens.
I'm working with juvenile justice, I'm working with faith-based organizations, I'm working with school systems, educational systems, I'm working with youth, I'm working with everyone, and the business is growing. Motivating the Masses is sitting over here and nothing's happening. Every year, my financial person would say, you need to close this company down. We cannot afford to pay $800 in your business. We need that $800 to pay your rent. And I go, I think one day I'm gonna need that name. For 10 years, I never put $1 in Motivating the Masses, not $1 for 10 straight years. And then the first check I put in Motivating the Masses was right after The Secret. I kind of felt it. Just kind of felt it, yeah.
Hi, I'm Jack Canfield from the Inner Circle Club at jackcanfield.com, and I just finished what may be one of the most inspiring interviews of my career with Lisa Nichols, who is the author of a book called No Matter What, and you're also a trainer and a speaker, and you're just doing amazing things around the world. And you talked about a phrase you used I loved. You said you have to stand on your story, not in your story. Could you talk about that for a minute?
Absolutely. all of us have experiences that we've endured. You know, we've had tragedies and triumphs and things that we've had to come through. And instead of standing in it, meaning it's the reason why you can't achieve, stand on it. You are who you are, not in spite of your past. You get to be who you're becoming because of your story. So you get to
Along that journey, you met our mutual friend, Jack Canfield. He created a series called Chicken Soup for the Soul, and he had a request for you.
Yeah, my brother from another mother.
Hi, I'm Jack Canfield, co-author of the best-selling Chicken Soup for the Soul books. It was always my dream to write a best-selling book that would make a difference in the lives of others.
Jack Canfield was an image from a distance at one point. He was this icon to me of something to aspire to. And so I watch him from a distance at different conferences that I would then go to.
By applying these principles, I've created a life that's phenomenal. The Guinness Book World Record for having 7 books on the New York Times bestseller list on the same day.
And so when I got the phone call that said, Jack Canfield would like for you to consider being the co-author of Chicken Soup for the African American Soul, I was like, no way. I was like, thank you so much, but I'm really, really busy right now. I was like, I'm not a writer, I'm an orator. I'm a linguistic specialist. And I would say that. They waited a month, called me back.
Thank you so much. I'm grateful, but I'm an orator, not a writer.
I'm a linguistic specialist. They waited a month. They called me back again a third time. Miss Nichols, Mr. Canfield thinks that you will be great. I was like,
Tell him I said thank you. But I'm an orator.
not a writer. I'm a,
Linguistic specialist.
right, I had it down, right? And on the 5th call, she disrupted me. She said, Miss Nichols, I know, don't tell me, you're an orator, not a writer. You're a linguistic specialist. She says, but I've looked at the work you've done with Motivating the Teen Spirit, and you seem like you're smart.
That's what you're doing.
What? The ego. She like triggered the ego. And I was like, I am smart. She was like, well, I don't understand why you are declining this invitation. And the truth jumped out. I said, I'm scared. Whew. See, I got to fail in English. And my English teacher told me I was the weakest writer she had ever met in her entire life. And I had vowed, no one will ever put that many red marks on anything I ever do again. And I will never give anyone a chance to judge me like that again. I didn't even know it was still in me. I didn't know it was still driving me. I didn't know. And I just was honest with her. I said, I don't know where to put the period. I'm a run-on sentence mama. And she said to me, I'm a profound writer and editor. And if you agree to tell a great story, I'll agree to never allow you to be embarrassed. I didn't realize what I needed was team. I thought, belief system, I gotta do it all myself. And so we entered into this amazing relationship. And so that book was one of the highest launches in the history of Chicken Soup up to that time. While I was still on tour, I got the contract to write Chicken Soup for the African American Woman Soul before I even returned home. And I accepted and did that one. And then he invited me to be a part of the Transformational Leadership Council. And he wanted me to see my other unicorns. And he invited me to this council with all of these brainchild people. I felt like I was on the wrong invitation list because they were all so smart. And then Rhonda Byrne shows up at one of our events and she's talking about this thing, The Secret and Law of Attraction, and I don't understand either one.
She goes, I'd like you to be in it. I'm like, ruh-roh, because I have no idea what she's talking about. I don't have no idea about no law of attraction, no secret, and I can barely understand what you're saying.
She goes, no, we need to interview you.
So I go on Google, because everything's on Google, and I type in secret. What was the problem? It ain't out yet. Because we making it.
Am I looking right?
When I sat down in the chair to be interviewed, and for the entire 2 hours and 15 minutes, I had no idea what the secret was. I was like, I'm gonna answer the question. I'm just gonna speak my truth.
I said, God, just let my truth come through me. So what you saw on The Secret was me surrendering to what I didn't know and what I knew I knew. I know how to do me. I know how to love me. And all of a sudden, a year later, Rhonda calls me and says, you know, we got a lot of requests for you. Could we do a reshoot and have more of you? They came out to California and we shot for 8 hours. And I was in the first version of The Secret 4 times. And then they did a redo and I was in the second version 19 times.
When I tell you my life took off, and I spent maybe 12 to 14 years just trying to catch up to my brand, catch up to the impact I was having on people, trying to identify what was it, because it was never a shtick. It was never a system. It was never a strategy. It was a being. And so I was trying to understand the being so I could understand how to get in front of it, how to be responsible for it. And at the core, it was people fell in love with my truth, because my truth gave them permission to see, touch, and embrace their truth. And so I showed up to the swim meet because Grandma said I couldn't quit. And so I get on deck and pow, the gun goes off. And I just started chanting something my grandmother had said the day before. Quitters never win, winners never quit. Quitters never win, winners never quit. I just kept chanting it while I was swimming. Quitters never win, and I could feel myself in a rhythm that was different.
There's an allegiance of ancestors cheering you on, walking with you, saying, do the dream, live the dream. Don't get scared. And if you get scared, do it with knees knocking and teeth chattering, but don't stop.
I hit the wall. And I look up to my coach with the sorrow, I did my best look. She runs to me. What did you do differently? I've trained with you all summer long. I've been at every swim meet with you. What did you do differently? I was like, I don't know. And now the people are just hitting the wall. And I'm like, Coach, what's happening here?
When you get connected with fear, it becomes your best friend. And when you stand on the edge and watch the people jump and look through the windows at all the people who are living great lives, you feel the fear and you leap anyway. She's like, you just broke the 17, 18-year-old's national record, Lisa. And that was the single most visceral, physical evidence that if I changed my thinking, my life had to demand the command. How would the world be a better place to live? Because fear didn't have you standing on the edge.
But when I changed my thoughts, my life had to obey my command.
I was that kid that was always struggling with self-esteem. Am I good enough? Am I smart enough? No one looks like me, makes it anywhere.
I didn't rank on anybody's Richter scale as exceptional. No one's. I was a C student.
You just don't see me on TV. You don't see me glorified. You don't see me representing beauty. You don't see me. So the world didn't give me permission to be here. But I didn't ask for it either.
No one knew who I could become. So it's really easy not to see me. And I always say, watch out. You might work for the C student one day.